The millionaire yelled at his secretary, but her response left everyone in shock at 3 p.m. The clock struck 3, and that's when it happened. The high-rise office, with its shimmering glass facade that struggled to contain the chaos within, suddenly erupted. Mr. Hargrove, the millionaire tycoon, stood at his grand mahogany desk, every inch of him seething with fury. His face, usually a picture of calm dominance, twisted into an expression of rage that was nearly unrecognizable. His voice, like a thunderstorm rolling in, boomed through the slick, modern office space, shaking the potted plants on the windowsill. "I told you to have that report ready by noon," he yelled, his fists clenched so tightly that his knuckles turned white. But it was her response, sharp as a whip, that silenced the whole room. "And I told you I need a full team, not just a man on a power trip." Around them, the employees' eyes widened in disbelief. Whispers flooded the room like an unexpected tide. Could she really stand up to him? A tremor of excitement shot through the air, electric and thick. The secretary, known as Claire, had always been the quiet one, but today she was like a spark igniting an already volatile mix of emotions. The murmurs grew, curiosity hanging like a thick fog. People exchanged glances, each person processing the tension in their own way, some shaking their heads, others biting their lips. From behind a cubicle, Jenna stifled a gasp. Dave, who was usually the office jokester, clenched his jaw as if he could barely contain his shock. "What is she doing?" Someone whispered, the words barely escaping their lips. The air felt charged, every heartbeat loud and echoing against the glass walls. Claire's eyes, usually filled with uncertainty, now blazed with something fierce and unyielding. The office was on the edge. This was more than a simple outburst, it felt like a turning point. The thoughts raced through their minds. What would happen next? Would Hargrove retaliate? Would she lose her job? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Silence hung thickly after her retort, as if the very air had stopped moving. Hargrove's expression twisted, a mix of disbelief and something darker, but then it shifted to something else: intrigue. Fear. The observers leaned in, entranced, not daring to blink, afraid to miss what would unfold next. Claire's heart raced, and for a moment, the world outside the building faded away, leaving just the two of them in this fiery standoff. And somewhere, deep within the murmur of the crowd, a question bubbled to the surface. What secret did Claire hold that gave her the strength to challenge him? The atmosphere thickened with anticipation, each heartbeat echoing the urgency of the moment, leaving everyone on the edge of their seats, desperate to know what would happen next. Hargrove's nostrils flared, and for a heartbeat, the weight of the room roared in silence. It was the kind of moment that could shift the very foundation of power within these walls. "You think you can talk to me like that?" He finally spat, his voice dripping with contempt. The arrogance he wore like armor was beginning to crack. Claire stood firm, her chest rising and falling rapidly. She'd never felt so alive, yet so terrified. The stakes were higher than just a report. Did she have what it took to change this ruthless environment? "You need to stop treating people like they're beneath you," she shot back, her voice steady as a rock in a raging river. Around them, the air crackled with disbelief, nearly suffocating the murmurs every time another employee dared to catch Claire's eye. Everyone was wide awake now, held hostage by a confrontation that felt as ancient and primal as a lion and its prey. But Claire wasn't here to back down. Not anymore. Jenna watched, spellbound. This was the moment she'd only dreamed of witnessing, but could Claire truly pull it off? Part of her wanted to flee the impending fallout. This was a man known for destroying careers in an instant. But another part, no, a larger part was rooting for Claire, praying for her success in this uncharted territory. "Who do you think you are?" Hargrove leaned across the desk, his finger pointing sharply like a knife edge. The atmosphere thickened with tension, like a storm ready to explode. "I'm someone who's not afraid of you," Claire replied, the fire inside her igniting further. She knew the moment had turned personal. This was about survival now, and she felt a tremor in her bones of fear as much as a thrill. The room shifted. Employees exchanged shocked glances, shockwaves of admiration and caution rippling through the crowd. Some whispered encouragement under their breaths, while others gaped as if they'd just witnessed a near-death experience. "Enough!" Hargrove bellowed, slamming his hand down on the desk. The sound resonated like a gunshot, echoing against the walls. "You think you can threaten me and keep your job?" Claire swallowed hard, feeling the weight of everyone's gaze. What if this went wrong? Fear punched her gut. But what if it didn't? What was left to lose? The thoughts surged within her, a tempest begging for an outlet. "I'm not threatening. I'm simply telling you the truth," she managed to say, steadying her voice. "You're in a position where you could inspire, but instead, you choose to intimidate." For a flicker of a second, there was a flash, the tiniest hint of uncertainty in Hargrove's eyes. Could it be that she had struck a nerve? But just as quickly, he morphed back, his facade slipping like a face mask pulled away. "Firing you would be the least of my worries," he snapped, his voice a low growl. "You think you can just walk away from this?" And just like that, the storm intensified. The stakes were raised, and everyone knew it. Sweat beaded on foreheads, tension crackled in the air like static electricity. What would follow? Suddenly, Claire felt a hand on her shoulder, a soft, supportive squeeze. It was Jenna, who had pushed through the crowd, her eyes silently pleading, "Just walk away." But Claire couldn't. This was too big now. In that swirling moment, a choice crystallized before her. Would she fight for her voice, her dignity, for what she believed was right? Or would she succumb to the fear that had paralyzed so many before her? As she readied herself for whatever was next, her heart raced even faster. What was the next move? Would Hargrove unleash his fury, or would this confrontation crack open a door she had thought long sealed shut? The tension hung heavy, as all eyes locked onto the two, drawing a collective breath as they waited for the next strike. The atmosphere was electric, charged with anticipation as the seconds stretched into what felt like an eternity. Claire stood her ground, every nerve ending alive with both adrenaline and fear. Hargrove's staring contest felt like a laser cutting through her, probing for weakness. The whispers around her faded into a dull roar, and all she could hear was the thunder of her own heartbeat. Hargrove leaned closer, menacing, predatory, his breath sour and hot. "You're playing a dangerous game, Claire," he hissed, venom dripping from each word. "You really think you can challenge me in my own arena?" With renewed determination, Claire raised her chin defiantly. "It's not a game. It's reality, and you need to wake up." Her voice didn't waver, even in this intense pressure cooker of a moment. In her peripheral vision, she caught glimpses of their colleagues' faces, some wide-eyed, others grim, but all glued to the escalating drama. Hargrove's nostrils flared again. "You're too naive to know what you're up against. This isn't just your job we're talking about, it's your career, your life." Her stomach churned. Every fiber of her being screamed at her to retreat. Yet, she felt an emerging power that pushed against the panic, a fire igniting deep within. "Maybe it's time someone brought down that tyrant facade of yours," she shot back, the sharp intake of breath from the audience sent a chill through her. For a moment, she thought she saw a crack in Hargrove's steely resolve, an acknowledgement of the fear whispering inside him. But it was fleeting. Rage clouded his features, transforming them into a grim mask. "Enough!" he thundered, slamming his fist against the desk once more, sending tremors through the floor and knocking over a pen holder. The mid-afternoon light through the office windows flickered ominously, shadows dancing maliciously around them. "You think you're invincible? Watch who you mess with. Gasping, Claire processed his words. A chill trickled down her spine. What more could he wield against her? Hargrove had a reputation, sharpened like the knife he thrust into this confrontation. Invoke fear all you want, but fear doesn't drive me. I'm driven by a vision, a better workplace for everyone. She couldn't believe those words were escaping her lips. The murmurs around her shifted, converting from disbelief to something akin to support. Incredible, Jenna whispered under her breath, eyes shining with admiration and a hint of dread, torn between worry and awe. With every moment, Claire was risking everything. But just then, before Hargrove could respond, a loud crash rang through the office. A large chandelier hanging overhead began to sway dangerously. Gasps erupted as people instinctively ducked away, eyes darting upward in panic. What the hell? Hargrove barked, momentarily distracted, irritation carving deeper lines into his face. In that second of chaos, Claire seized the opportunity, her instinct kicking in. People deserve respect. She yelled over the clamor, words tumbling out like stones rolling downhill. You can either stand with us or be crushed under the weight of your own tyranny. Before she could process the impact of her words or their effect on Hargrove, a figure emerged from the back. Lucas, the company's past employee. He stood there, face ashen, declaring to the assembly, I'm not the only one who has suffered under his reign. Gasps ripped through the crowd. The room shifted again. Claire's heart raced wildly. This was unfolding into something she hadn't anticipated. But would this be the turning point? The moment the tides turned against Hargrove, or would it just fuel his wrath even more? The storm was brewing, and all she could do now was brace for the fallout. As the tension reset, Claire felt the weight of expectations. Epiphany or disaster? The stakes were spiraling beyond her control, and she was right at the eye of the storm. What would Hargrove do next? Would they all be swept up in the chaos? The air hung heavy with trepidation as Lucas's words flickered in the charged atmosphere like a match struck in darkness. For a fleeting moment, everything seemed suspended, as if time itself struggled to process the weight of his confession. Hargrove's face twisted into a mask of disbelief that quickly morphed into fury. You dare come back here? After all this time? His voice was a low growl, each syllable laced with menace. Lucas took a tentative step forward, eyes flicking between Hargrove and Claire. I dare because I've seen the light. I can't stay silent anymore, not with what's at stake for all of us. The murmurs swelled again as people exchanged glances, the facade crumbling faster than Hargrove could grasp. Claire felt the swell of support at her back. It was unlike anything she had ever known, like a wave surging forward, fueled by the shared pain of the past. Still, Hargrove stood firm, a swelling volcano ready to erupt. This isn't a meeting for gossiping disgruntled employees. You all think you can rally against me? This is my empire. The tension thickened, Claire could almost feel it press against her skin. She refused to back down, glancing at Lucas. You're not alone. He can't keep intimidating us. We have the strength of truth. Each tiny word fell like a stone dropped in a still pond, sending ripples of courage spreading throughout the gathered crowd. Jenna, her eyes bright with stubbornness, stepped forward as if propelled by collective determination. We're not afraid anymore, Hargrove. Your reign ends now. The room ignited with fervor as voices joined in unison, a chorus challenging oppression. Together. They cried. It was the kind of raw hope that brought tears to Claire's eyes. They were finally standing up for themselves. And then came the firestorm. Hargrove's eyes darted around, outrage boiling beneath the surface. You think this ends well for you? He roared, slamming his palm against the table. The clatter echoed off the walls, silencing the crowd momentarily. You'll all regret this. You're putting your necks on the line. What's there left to fear? Lucas shouted back, his voice steady but filled with defiance. Being silenced. We've lived in fear long enough. It's time to take back our voices. The walls around them vibrated with the intensity of their emotions. Excitement mingled with the fear that gnawed at Claire's insides. She could almost see the lines being drawn, the factions forming between tyranny and resistance. The fascination of seeing strength in numbers almost mesmerized her, but fear whispered in her ear it could all crumble, just like that chandelier. Enough of this nonsense. Hargrove's voice was a whip, cracking in the silence that followed. You think you're worthy rivals? I will crush you. He lunged toward Claire, his presence shadowing her like a suffocating fog. The crowd recoiled, gasps rising like smoke. Then, from the far corner of the room, a loud crash split the tension, and the door flew open. A uniformed officer stood there, eyes scanning the fray. We've received reports of disturbances. Is everything all right in here? The officer's arrival was a bombshell. The atmosphere shifted again, tension crackling like shattered glass. For a heartbeat, Claire thought she saw doubt flicker in Hargrove's eyes, but it was quickly masked by fury. Get out! He barked at the officer, but the man stood steadfast, refusing to move. In this precarious moment, Claire realized what if they all stood together. She hardened her resolve. This isn't just about us anymore, Hargrove. You can't silence us. We'll bring everything to light. Stunned silence descended, heartbeats thudding loudly in her ears. Hargrove's world was on the precipice, and whether it crumbled or not depended on her and everyone else who had suffered in silence. What would happen next? Would someone pay the price for their defiance? As Claire stared at Hargrove, she wondered if they were daring fate too much, or had they finally found the force to uproot his tyranny. The silence was deafening. Claire could feel the weight of every gaze turned toward her, the mingling threads of fear and resolve tightly woven together. Hargrove's face contorted in rage, his lips curling in a snarl that revealed how fury had twisted him into something dangerous. Do you really think you can take me down? He hissed, his voice low and calculated. The bravado he'd displayed earlier was now undercut by a flicker of uncertainty, but none in the crowd dared to believe he was truly at a loss. Yes, Claire replied, finding her voice, strong despite the tremors in her heart. It was a simple word, but one packed with all the weight of their collective suffering. She felt sweat bead on her forehead as eyes turned toward each other, a mixture of hope and fear mingling in the air like electricity. The officer stepped further into the room, waving away the anxious whispers. We need to ensure everyone's safety. Hargrove, it's best if you comply with the law. Hargrove clenched his hands into fists, his knuckles turning a pale white. It was a spark ready to ignite, but Claire understood they had the advantage now. You've bullied these people for far too long, she said. Her voice unwavering, it sliced through the tension. Today, we take back control of our lives. The crowd erupted. It was an anthem of strength, echoing against the walls. Voices rose, marching toward confrontation, taking their chances in the rare moment of unity. Hargrove's expression cracked ever so slightly, giving a glimpse of the man behind the mask. But the fury returned quickly. Do you think this makes you safe? He bellowed. You are all nothing. You think you can take away my empire? I'll ruin every last one of you. In that instant, a chill ran through Claire. Those weren't just words, they bore the weight of the countless threats she'd endured over the years. Yet, she stood firm. What else could she do? Watch me. She fired back, a spark igniting within her. And just like that, a wave of courage spread, breaking through despair. She glanced around, seeing familiar faces filled with newfound determination. Then came a sudden crash as Hargrove hurled a heavy glass object across the room, shattering it against the far wall. The crowd gasped, recoiling from the sharp sound and the shards flying in every direction. Enough! He shouted, his voice dripping with ice. You want to claim your voices? Let us hear them when you're on the streets, begging for mercy. A hush fell over the crowd, an uneasy calm wrapping them like a heavy blanket. Their resolve wavered. For just a moment, fear slipped back in like a thief, ready to steal their momentum. But Claire took a shaky breath, refusing to let it consume her. "You can try to silence us, Hargrove," she said, taking a brave step forward. "But the truth is like a fire, you can't extinguish it. We have the evidence. You think you're invincible, but you're not." The tension shifted again, the crowd, momentarily caught in a breathless quiet, surged behind her. Jenna's voice sliced through the stillness. "And if we have to bring it all to light, then we will. What do you think you're going to do?" Hargrove sneered, but the fight in his eyes had dimmed, veins of uncertainty flaring beneath the fury. Before Claire could respond, an older woman in the back shouted, "You've preyed on us long enough. You're the one who will have to answer for this." And with those words, the crowd ignited again, passion fueling their voices into a tidal wave of protest. As Hargrove's face contorted further, Claire felt the tide turning. But it wasn't enough yet. They were standing on shaky ground, all of them aware that one wrong move could send them spiraling into darkness. What if Hargrove enacted his own form of retribution? One solidified by the chaos brewing in the room, igniting fears of retaliation. The thought sent shivers racing down her spine. But just then, a thought struck Claire like lightning, compelling and shattering all at once. Could the officer help them, provide the assistance they desperately needed? "Officer," she called, urgency spilling from her lips, "we need your help. Will you stand with us against him? Can you safeguard us?" The officer's gaze darted between Hargrove and the gathering storm of people behind Claire. As uncertainty flickered across his face, Claire held her breath, praying he would take the leap. Would their fight culminate in victory or tragedy? Would this officer become the ally they so desperately needed, or would he turn away, leaving them at the mercy of Hargrove once more? Claire's heart raced, anticipating the answer. The officer's eyes widened, caught between the desperate pleas of the crowd and the simmering rage radiating from Hargrove. Time slowed. Claire could hear the rapid beating of her heart echo in her ears as she clung to the hope that this man, donned in uniform, would become their shield against the storm. After a heavy moment, the officer squared his shoulders, his jaw tightening. "I can't promise anything," he said, his voice firm but wavering slightly. "But I'm not here to see innocent people harmed." A flicker of relief sparked within Claire. The air shifted, it felt electric, charged with a renewed collective energy. Hargrove, sensing the tide turning, unleashed a roar that shattered the brief calm. "This is a mistake!" he shouted, shoving a table aside, the wood splintering upon impact. "You think a few voices can change anything? I will bury you all." An icy fear gripped Claire's stomach, but she couldn't afford to falter. "Stand with us, officer," she urged again, raising her voice above the chaos. "We have the power to shine a light through his darkness." The officer exchanged glances with those gathered, uncertainty clouding his face. But Claire could see something else, a flicker of resolve sparking in his eyes. Just as he nodded slowly, another crash erupted, this time a blinding spotlight illuminating the scene, casting long shadows on the walls. Whispers ignited among the crowd. The door burst open, revealing a group of Hargrove's goons, faces shadowed, eyes glinting with malice. "Looks like you're inviting trouble," the lead thug sneered, smirking as he surveyed the room. "What's the plan now?" Panic washed over the crowd. Claire felt slippery beads of sweat slide down her back. Hargrove's smirk melted away, replaced with an expression of primal fear. It was now evident the weight of his empire depended on brute force, and here it came marching through the door. The officer stepped forward, spine straightening. "You need to leave. This is a lawful assembly," he warned, but the thugs just laughed. "Lawful? You think you can take control here?" The thug's laughter echoed, dark and taunting. "Let us see how brave you are when your little crowd is scattered." A scream pierced the air as one of the women closest to them stumbled back, nearly falling. That was enough to spread fear like wildfire. People instinctively backed away, eyes darting between the thug and their leader, as tension thickened like fog. Claire felt the world narrow down to the throbbing pulse of her own fear. She fought against the rising tide of it, her breath quickening. "We stand united," she cried, her voice raw with desperation. "We will not go back to living in fear." But the thugs advanced, and the officer hesitated, caught between authority and vulnerability. Claire's heart crashed against her chest, the stakes suddenly harsher than ever. Fear mingled with adrenaline as she clenched her fists. She saw the faces of those she had fought for: Jenna, the older woman, the tired, worn community who had gathered to fight back. If she faltered now, it wouldn't just be her life on the line, it would be theirs too. What possible strategy could bring them through? She clung to hope, her mind racing. Then, in a shocking heartbeat, Claire's hazel eyes caught sight of something glimmering on the ground, a shard from the glass Hargrove had smashed moments earlier. It was dangerous, yes, but so was remaining stagnant. "Look!" she shouted again, adrenaline flooding her system. "Together, we can fight back." But would they really dare to stand against Hargrove's feral wolves, or was this just the beginning of a bloody confrontation? As she bent to grab the shard, a sense of fate pressed down upon her. Would they battle blood and fury for freedom, or would Hargrove's empire rise again, leaving them in ruins? The moment Claire's fingers closed around the shard, the world around her blurred into a chaotic mix of fear and adrenaline. She rose slowly, the glass piece glistening like a beacon, reflecting the harsh fluorescent lights above. "Listen." Her voice pierced through the tension, shaky but resolute. "If we stand together, we can't be broken." The crowd hesitated, confusion flickering across their faces. Disbelief mingled with backpedaling steps, but a few began to nod, that glimmer of hope catching on like wildfire. The officer's eyes locked on the shard, sharp with a mixture of apprehension and admiration. "Are you sure about this?" he questioned, taking a tentative step back toward them. "I can't protect you if it turns violent." "Hargrove is a monster," Claire shot back, her voice ringing with urgency. "We either fight back now, or we lose everything." The thug's laughter cut through her speech, a cruel sneer stretching across his face. "You think with a little piece of glass, you can take on us?" He stepped forward, muscles taut, eyes gleaming with twisted amusement. "Every hero has their end, sweetheart. Yours is coming fast." In a flash, the officer reached for his radio. "I need backup at the community center." But his voice was swallowed by the ongoing chaos, the thugs losing patience and edging forward, taking ownership of the room with every calculated step. Just then, Jenna, the older woman, stepped into Claire's line of sight, determination radiating from her like an impenetrable shield. "I'm tired of living in fear," she declared boldly, raising her fists, shaking with righteous fury despite her age. "We've been scared long enough." Claire's heart swelled with gratitude. If Jenna could find her voice, they could ignite a spark in everyone else. "See on everyone," Claire pushed. "Remember why we came together. Hargrove may have muscle, but we have unity. That's powerful." More voices joined in, hesitant at first, but growing louder. "We stand together. No more fear. United against Hargrove." The thugs paused, their confidence shaking under the weight of the collective voice rising in resistance. Claire felt the thrill of hope rush through her, surging with the chorus of her people. But Hargrove's goons were not done. "Enough of this." Hargrove's voice roared above the noise, his presence looming. "Order will be restored, one way or another." With a sudden movement, one of the thugs lunged at Claire, hands reaching for her. She swung the shard, her heart racing, the glass biting into the air. The thug recoiled, a look of surprise painted on his face as the shard grazed him. A gasp rippled through the crowd. "Get her!" the lead thug screamed, slinging violent words as he charged forward. Claire felt the pulse of fear again, but the voices of the crowd filled her ears, urging her forward, lifting her spirit. She was not alone. With a fierce determination, she shouted, "Defend yourselves. But as she spun to face Hargrove's advancing forces, the room erupted into chaos. The officer fumbled with his radio while people surged forward, some ready to fight, others still doubting. In the confusion, Claire's thoughts raced. Would this moment dissolve into a brutal clash? Could they truly hold their ground? Or had the flames of resistance ignited only to be snuffed out by the suffocating power of Hargrove's goons? Just then, another figure appeared, piercing eyes locking onto Claire's, filled with something she couldn't quite place. It was someone she never expected to see again, someone who could turn the tide, but would they join the fight, or would they turn away? As the rush of bodies closed in, one question lingered: would they survive this brutal trial, or would their rebellion be drowned in the chaos? The figure stood near the entrance, her silhouette framed against the bright lights. Claire's heart raced as recognition washed over her. It was Maya, a fierce activist who had vanished months ago, leaving a void in their community that still stung. Had she really returned, or was her presence just another trick played by Hargrove's twisted schemes? Maya. Claire's voice broke through the fervor, a mix of disbelief and desperate hope threading through her words. Is that you? Maya stepped into the fray, eyes darting feverishly, assessing the escalating chaos. I knew you'd need me, she said, a smile faint but shimmering with relief. I've been gathering allies outside. The confession ignited something deep within Claire. Allies? They were more than just residents rebelling against tyranny, they were essential threads in a fabric that could withstand Hargrove's terror. Then let us show them what we've got. Claire called out to the crowd, her voice razor-sharp, slicing through the tension. The mob surged forward, bolstered by renewed hope, but Hargrove wasn't done yet. Fools! He boomed, a sneer creeping across his face as he positioned himself between Claire and Maya. You think you can take me on? You don't know who you're dealing with. His thugs moved in unison, muscles coiled like springs ready to strike. Claire felt their predatory gazes close in, a suffocating weight pressing on her chest. But just as despair threatened to suffocate her spirit, Jenna stepped up beside Claire, her fists still raised, emboldening the crowd. We know who we're dealing with, Jenna shouted, her voice unwavering. He is a greedy tyrant, and this is our home. We will not back down. As the chants of stand together. And we will not be defeated. Rose again, the air crackled with an electrifying energy. It was a collective heartbeat, a rhythm that represented rising defiance. Claire gripped the shard tighter, her knuckles turning white with determination. Then Maya shouted, everyone. Move to the left and flank them. We can catch them off guard. It was a strategic command that resonated with Claire, a plan born of careful calculation. The crowd heightened its energy, shifting together like a single organism full of pulsating life. Hargrove's men looked bewildered as Claire's allies pushed forward, forming an impenetrable wall of courage. Suddenly, a shout echoed from the back of the room. Look out! A metallic clang cut through the ambience, a steel chair hurled wildly toward one of Hargrove's thugs. The chair slammed against him, knocking him off balance and causing a commotion that rippled through the aggressive ranks. In the immediate chaos, more objects joined the fray: papers, chairs, even water bottles flew through the air as makeshift weapons. It was raw, it was chaotic, and most importantly, it was their fight. Adrenaline surged through Claire's veins. She could hardly believe what was happening. In this chaotic ballet of burgeoning rebellion, she felt the weight of fear lift, replaced instead with exhilarating defiance. They were standing together. They were unified. Then Claire spotted a flicker of movement. A small group of Hargrove's enforcers, vastly outnumbered but desperate, began to peel away from the crowd, slipping towards the exits. Their confidence fading, they turned tail, their control beginning to slip. Don't let them escape. Claire yelled, her voice cutting through the frenzy like a knife, but in the split moment of triumph, Claire caught a glimpse of Hargrove himself, anger boiling beneath the surface. He lunged, a dark shadow against the tide of rebellion as he made a beeline toward her. What have you done? He seethed, as if the very ground trembled beneath his feet. Chaos transformed into horror as Claire met his furious gaze, a chill creeping down her spine. This was no mere thug, this was the beast in the shadows, an apex predator fighting against the uprising. Would they be able to fend off the criminal mastermind, or had they finally stirred the monster's wrath? With the room still buzzing with action, Claire knew one thing: the fight was far from over. As Hargrove's shadow loomed closer, a single question hung in the air, thick with anticipation: would they overcome, or had they just awakened a beast that could devour them all? Hargrove's rage was palpable, crackling in the air like static. Claire's heart thundered in her chest as she faced him. The chaos around them faded into a dull roar, making way for this moment of confrontation. You think you can take me down? You and your pathetic little crew? Hargrove loomed over Claire, a dangerous predator cornering its prey. His imposing figure towered, and for just a split second, doubt seeped into Claire's resolve. But then she thought of Maya, of Jenna, and of everyone who'd lost their homes, their livelihoods, at his hands. No, not just us. Claire's voice rose, emboldened by unyielding spirit. We're standing for every single person you've hurt. Hargrove let out a deep, mocking laugh, a sound that sent chills through the crowd. You think you can overpower me with words? I'll crush you. His thugs moved closer, muscles taut in anticipation of his command. In that moment, Maya darted into the fray, her presence grounding Claire. We won't let you intimidate us. She raised her voice, rallying those around her. Together, we'll show you the power of community. The crowd erupted, unified shouts swelling, a rising tide of determination. It was no longer just about Claire. It was about every voice silenced, every dream crushed under Hargrove's heel. But just as the crowd surged forward, ready to confront this tyrant, Hargrove unleashed his fury. Then let us make this interesting. He whirled around, signaling for reinforcements hidden in shadowy corners. The real terror was about to spill out. Panic darted through the crowd like a wild animal, but Claire's voice cut through. Hold the line. Don't back down. She remembered her father's lessons: never let fear win, and then, as if the universe conspired at that very moment, the doors burst open and more people flooded in, more allies, eager to confront Hargrove's reign of terror. It was as if Maya's earlier call had reached far and wide. Who are all these people? Hargrove snarled, his confidence wavering for the first time. They were friends, neighbors, families, each face a testament to the bond that had been forged in the fires of their struggle. Claire felt a surge of hope as they stepped forward, standing shoulder to shoulder with her and her allies. Suddenly, a loud bang thrashed through the air, a gunshot that echoed against the walls. The crowd froze. Fear hung thick, suffocating any chance of movement. All eyes darted around the room, seeking the source. From the shadows, a hooded figure materialized, pistol drawn. The atmosphere shifted, tension coiling like a drawn bowstring. It was as if time had ground to a halt. Hargrove's face twisted from anger to shock as he recognized that he was not the only one wielding power in this confrontation. What are you waiting for? The figure growled at the crowd. Stand your ground. Or you'll be next. A wave of disbelief washed over Claire. Who was this person? An ally or another enemy? Her stomach twisted with uncertainty. Maya looked to Claire, her eyes wide with both fear and curiosity. This changes everything, she whispered, but Claire knew they needed to act fast. Hargrove, now visibly shaken, wasn't he going to wait for them to regroup? This is far from over. He shouted, eyes blazing as he turned to his men. Claire felt the weight of the moment cascade over her. They had gone from fleeing shadows to warriors in their own right. As the tension boiled over, a collective breath held in anticipation. What would happen next? Would they face this unknown gunman together? Or was betrayal lurking in the shadows just waiting to pounce? Someone had the upper hand, but who? The crowd stood together, ready to decide their fate, even as danger loomed from every direction. In the thick of uncertainty, Claire clenched her fists tighter, steeling herself. The answer would come, and she could feel the turning point near. But would they emerge united or splinter apart in the face of turmoil? The question hung heavily in the air, charged with fear and expectation. Were they prepared for the truth that lay ahead? The tension had reached a steely peak. Claire stood at the forefront, her breaths coming in sharp gasps as she battled the wave of uncertainty that threatened to break over her. Hargrove's looming figure was not just a tyrant in the flesh, he was an embodiment of fear, years of it bottled into a furious storm. But here, in this moment, she felt the flicker of hope burning brighter. The hooded figure shifted, adjusting their grip on the pistol as they eyed Hargrove like a hawk. It was a sight that sent waves of confusion and courage alike through the crowd. "Are you with us, or against us?" Claire's voice rang out, an urgent plea more than a command. "We have the numbers, we have the truth. Stand with us." The crowd inched closer, the initial fear melting into a rising current of resolve. "We will not cower." Jenna's voice broke through the uncertainty, cutting like a knife. "This is our moment." "Right!" shouted Maya, the determination in her voice unwavering. "Together, we can shatter the chains he has bound us with." They were feeling it, the crackle of revolution igniting, stoked by the lens of shared trauma and loss. Hargrove sneered, a snarl twisting his features. "You think you can win with empty threats and fiery words? You're delusional." His voice roared through the room, a tempest determined to intimidate. The hooded figure stepped forward, lifting the gun toward the ceiling. "Then let us show him what real power looks like." A shot fired, the sound reverberating through the room like thunder. It ricocheted off the walls, sending a jolt into every heart, solidifying the shared purpose among Claire and her allies. Hargrove visibly flinched, the color draining from his face as he suddenly appeared smaller, less imposing. "Get down!" someone shouted from the back, as the crowd instinctively dropped, fear scaling the walls in a palpable form. Claire wasn't ready to cower. She pushed forward. "The truth is our weapon. We will not be silenced." Hargrove's men hesitated, glancing between their furious leader and the gathered crowd. They were losing ground. "Do you all really think you can take me down?" Hargrove howled. "I will ruin you." "Your time is up, Hargrove." Claire shouted, rallying her people. Each voice joined in unison, a sound that echoed with undaunted spirit, rising higher than even the chaos. "No more fear. Together we are stronger." It was a chant that molded into a raw and defiant melody, shaking the very foundations of his power, and just as the tide surged in their favor, the next revelation struck. The hooded figure ripped down the disguise revealing Brian, a former colleague of Hargrove, the man who had been mysteriously absent for months. "You thought you could bury the truth?" Brian tossed out. "I'm here to bring it back in the open." Gasps migrated through the crowd, confusion mingling with rising adrenaline. Claire felt the breath of fresh air wash over her. With every word, "We're breaking the chains of your control," Claire called out, her heart racing, understanding the weight of the moment. "It's over, Hargrove." The officer stepped up beside Brian, finding his footing, emboldened. "We have reports of corruption and misconduct. This is not an empty threat. You're surrounded and outnumbered." The conviction gathered in the room, vibrating like electricity ready to burst forth. Hargrove's eyes darted around, he was grasping for control, but the grip was loosening. His empire of fear was unraveling, thread by thread. "Bring it on," Hargrove spat, his bravado faltering but not quelling. "No more games," Claire declared, feeling freedom surge through the room, growing like wildfire among them. "This isn't just for us, it's for every voice you've silenced. We're taking a stand, and we will win." A riotous cheer erupted from the crowd, voices rising harmoniously, shattering the oppressive silence. Hargrove's gaze was fierce, but now it was tinged with something that began resembling panic. He realized this was more than a confrontation, this was a reckoning, and then, in that free and electrifying moment, the barriers of fear crumbled, options exploded, and the momentum shifted fully toward the crowd. Claire could feel it, the weight of a million struggles translating into power. Together. She shouted again, rallying the energy surging through them. Let us finish what we started. Then it happened, the tide surged. The officers lined up, some flanked by Brian's allies, surrounding Hargrove and his thugs. The officer raised his hand one last time. It's time to answer for the harm you've inflicted on these people. You have nowhere to run. Glancing one last time at Claire, Hargrove's villainous mask cracked entirely. You think this is over? I've built an empire. But in that moment, Claire knew the truth. Empires built on fear and tyranny could never last against brave souls armed with truth and unity. Hargrove's power was crumbling as a chorus of voices took control. As the officers moved in, she felt the thrill of victory, a delicate warmth blooming in her chest. Around her, the faces of determined allies shone back, unyielding through fear, finally reclaiming their dignity. They had shown their resilience, forged their own path, and the moment was theirs, and in that newfound strength, they all knew they would fight on, together, towards a future free from Hargrove's shadow. This was the moment that changed everything. Now, it's time for you to be part of this community. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories filled with heart and rebellion. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and keep the fire of these stories burning bright. Flood the comments below with your reactions and theories about this electrifying conclusion. What does this victory mean for Claire and her allies? And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness the power of unity and truth. Your support makes all the difference.